Okay, so how many of you are so psyched about pizza on the grill? Let's hear it. Woo! Are you here for pizza on the grill? Yeah. Totally. It's so cool. It's so cool. So we're pretty much gonna do it from beginning to end. We're gonna make our own dough. I'm gonna walk you through how to make a sauce because, you know, the reality is you could probably just easily use a really nice pizza sauce that is sold here. And then we'll talk about toppings. The toppings that we're gonna do today are sausage meatball, sauteed red peppers, fontina cheese, mozzarella cheese, a little bit of basil, a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and then we grill them up here on the grill. So, you know, summer is a perfect time to do it because everybody can use their outdoor grill, but clearly if you had some sort of an indoor grill or even like a, I want to say like a George Foreman, but, you know, something where you could cover the grill, you could make them inside as well. And in the oven, of course, you know, on a tile. Okay. So we'll get started with the dough first. It's bread flour, and I just have it in my little mixer here. And to the bread flour, we add yeast. And this is a totally simple recipe. And I know they do sell dough here as well. So, you know, if you were in a bind and you didn't want to make it, you could certainly buy the dough here too. But so this is totally simple because everything goes into the mixer all at once. So salt, yeast, honey, 2 teaspoons, and about, what is it, a tablespoon and a half or so of oil. You know, just estimate. It's not gonna, right? Whatever. Yes?
You don't do anything to proof the yeast or anything like that?
I don't do anything to proof the yeast. However, that's a good point. Proofing the yeast, you all know about that, where you put the yeast in like a little bit of warm water before you get started. And what that, and you should see the yeast bubble a little bit, right? And so what that does is that's making sure that your yeast is active and still alive. So I happen to go through a lot of yeast, you know, and I always am buying fresh yeast. But if you're buying in like bulk and you haven't used it in a while, definitely do that little proofing stage. So how you do that is you put the yeast in the bottom of the bowl first before you add the flour, and put a little bit of the water on the yeast and a little bit of sugar. And so in this case we use honey, but go ahead and sprinkle just a little pinch of sugar on the yeast and stir it around and give it about 5 minutes. And you should see some activity. If you don't see any activity, then don't waste your time making the dough because it will never rise. You know, you just waste all the ingredients and the yeast is already dead. So just make a quick run to the store and get a new yeast. Okay, so we have the oil, salt, yeast, honey. Am I missing anything? Just the water, right? And I'm just gonna pour all that in. This recipe is great for altitude here. You don't really need to adjust it. You know how at altitude we're so dry here, so sometimes like you need even more water to add it to your doughs and stuff because the flour is so, and the air is so dry. This is a pretty good recipe, works really great just as it is. So then you have your paddle on the mixer and you just paddle the dough for, it says a minute, 2 minutes, something like that. The question is, why am I not using warm water? Because normally with doughs, it calls, you know, you use the warm water and that activates the yeast and it gets it going pretty quickly. This pizza recipe, totally easy to make, like you see, but it does say that you should leave it in your refrigerator or 8 hours to 3 days. Thank you. 8 hours to 3 days. So what's happening is you're going directly into the refrigerator, so you don't need to use warm water to get the yeast started. What we're doing is we're letting the yeast slowly activate and slowly build flavor. The longer you leave the dough in the refrigerator, the more flavor and the more texture the dough will have. So if you're doing, you know, hot water with yeast, that's totally fine, but you're really rushing the process. And you know how like when they make sourdough breads and mothers and starters and all of that, how they let the yeast and the water and the flour, how they let it just sit for days on end, right? And that's really developing all of that good yummy flavor. So you can go ahead with this particular recipe, start with cold water. And if you're in a hurry, go with hot water. Proof it in your oven like I do, you know, in a nice warm place, like they say with breads, you know, a nice warm place, and use it that way. So it's really flexible for you, but you do get more out of the dough, both flavor and texture, by letting it proof in the refrigerator nice and slowly. Okay, so then we switch from the paddle to the dough hook. we're just kneading this for a couple of minutes. We're not looking for like the totally smooth, soft as a baby's butt dough, because it's gonna sit in the refrigerator for 3 days and it's gonna slowly develop the soft as a baby's butt. So you don't have to do much work. We're just really bringing the dough together, giving it a little bit of a dough hook, and then we put it in the refrigerator. Exactly, so the difference between the paddle and the hook is the paddle really gives you a head start. Like if you hooked this thing, if you tried to hook the dough the whole way, it would take you a long time, because by the time it, brought it. So the paddle really pulls it together quickly, and then you just give it a little bit of work with the hook. If you don't have a mixer, you can totally do it by hand. It takes longer, but again, you're letting it rise those 3 days in the refrigerator. You just need to bring it together. Exactly, you just need to bring it together. Give it a little bit of kneading. Yeah, what, sweetie? It doesn't, right. Oh, so let's talk about when it's done, how you know that you've added so much flour. I tell you, this recipe's great though, works every time. So, but how you know that it's done, or that there's enough flour or enough water, is you want to squeeze it together and you feel a little bit of tackiness, but it's almost like one of those stickies, the Post-it notes. Yeah, it's just like that, where you pull it off and it's just a little bit tacky, but not too tacky. You don't get any real residue on your fingers, and that's how you know it's done. So then just this in a nice oiled bowl, just throw a little bit of oil in the bottom.
The oils keep it from sticking.
Yeah, oils to keep it from sticking. And then cover with plastic wrap and in the refrigerator. And that's it. I made the meatballs earlier today because I didn't think you need to see me sit here rolling like little tiny meatballs. But see how they're nice and mini, right? And so I just bought a sausage, a bulk sausage that they actually sell here, not in the skin, right? Just the bulk. And probably, I think I bought 2 pounds, but just buy a pound of sausage, any kind you like. This was like an Italian sausage, so it has fennel, and but if you like chorizo or spicier sausages, you can do that. And so then just straight from the package, I rolled them into little balls, put them on a sheet pan, and baked them at 400 degrees for like 8 minutes. And then took them out. Now this can go on the pizza safely. They're completely cooked through, and the pizza's going to be on this grill here for about 5 to 7 minutes, depending on how hot this grill is. It's pretty hot. But so theoretically, if your meatballs were small enough, you could just cook them on the pizza, but just for safety, and people that are worried about, they get a medium rare meatball and they freak out, you just may want to cook them ahead of time and have them ready to go. We heat up, just very simply, just saute these peppers, heat up a little bit of olive oil in the pan, put in the peppers, because we always want to season as we go, so put a little bit of salt in. Now to this you could add a variety of herbs if you want, oregano or thyme or some hearty herb that sautés nicely with the bell peppers. So basil's not good cooked, so we just want to put it on fresh at the end. And so we'll just keep this until we're done with the pizza, until they come off the grill.